Welcome back to France 24. It's time for the International Press Review with Oliver Ferry. Ollie, in the United States, Washington is getting back into swing of things after the government shutdown.
Yes, the New York Times reports that after the shutdown, it's business as usual for Washington's lobbyists. They were watching from the sidelines for much of the 18-day shutdown, but now they're scrambling to make sure that the interests of the groups that they represent will not get hit by spending cuts in the budget in the new year. The defence industry is likely to be among the most hardest hit, with automatic cuts, also known as sequestration, due to kick in January, will slice $20 billion off the Pentagon's budget. And the Times quotes the CEO of the Aerospace Industries Association saying it's fair to say the volume in Washington is going to get deafening over the coming months. And among those interest groups that are vying for favour are doctors, educators, various corporate interests, as well as America's biggest lobby group, Senior Citizens. But one member of Congress, Steve Israel, says that lobbyists have the right to be vocal, but this process cannot be a special interest bazaar.
Now, meanwhile, Britain is kickstarting its nuclear industry again. What are the papers saying about this?
Well, The Guardian reports that the construction of the country's first power station in 2 decades is about to take place after months of delay. It is generously helped by subsidies from the British government, which are ironically going to French energy giant EDF and Areva also. And the irony is, of course, that Britain privatised its energy sector back in the 1990s, and now it's being forced to turn to abroad for both China and France, both of which have companies that are state-run. And it comes after public anger over spiralling electricity bills in the UK, which last week prompted the Archbishop of Canterbury to intervene and denounce what he called the latest inexplicable rise of 8%. Now, in the Daily Telegraph, Michael Hanlon asks, is it a new dawn for nuclear power? He bemoans the loss of Britain's pre-eminence as a nuclear power pioneer. It was ahead of every other country in the world, including the Soviet Union and the United States, in generating nuclear power. He's blamed it on political cowardice of successive governments and scaremongering stoked by the environmental movement, which he says has an almost religious objection to nuclear power. Britain is now racing against the clock, he says, to meet its energy needs, with all 16 of its nuclear reactors nearing the end of their existence. And Britain relies upon them for 18% of its energy needs. Now, he also says that the pendulum of popular opinion is swinging back in favour of nuclear energy, with several prominent Greens saying it's the only way of creating energy in an environmentally safe way.
OK, let's move on to a piece in the Telegraph, because it's focusing on the new developments of a painful chapter in Northern Ireland.
Yes, the Daily Telegraph picks up on a story that was originally carried by the Sunday Times. There are reports that British soldiers involved in the killing of 14 civilians in Derry in Northern Ireland in January 1972 could face charges. Up to 20 retired paratroopers could be implicated and face questioning by police for alleged murder or attempted murder. The British government has long been accused of whitewashing the killings, but a government-commissioned inquiry in 2010 concluded the killings have been unjustified and unjustifiable, and they criticised the acts of senior army officers in sending paratroopers in on a civil rights march, and that prompted a formal apology by Prime Minister David Cameron. Now, the only thing is that inquiry, the Savile inquiry, cannot be used as evidence, so the prosecutors would be relying upon witness reports.
And finally, Ollie, you've picked out a piece about Turkey. It was a strong supporter of the Syrian opposition, and it's now turning its guns on al-Qaeda-affiliated opponents of the Assad regime.
That's right. Abdul Rahman al-Rashid, writing in the London-based pan-Arab daily Asharq al-Assad, says Turkey has finally started attacking al-Qaeda groups. This is after more than 2 years of allowing them to run troops and weapons into Syria through its territory. Al-Rashid says that the Turks felt they were carrying a scorpion that will later come back to sting them, as it has many of its previous allies before them. And the Turks and the Al-Nusra Front and ISIS groups, both of which are considered Islamist, have exchanged fire, and Turkey has blocked access to its territory to them. And this is after Islamist groups kidnapped and killed fellow rebels in the Free Syrian Army. Al-Rashid applauds the Turkish move, saying it will correct inaccurate views in both Syria and Turkey, and he's called on Ankara to put its full support behind the Free Syrian Army.
Oliver Ferry, thank you very much for that. That was the International Press Review right here on France 24. Coming up next is The Focus. We'll talk about a population census that sparked a huge debate on national identity in Bosnia, threatening the fragile democracy. And we'll also have all the latest sports news, so don't go away.